Hey everyone, it's Devin Francis, also known as Dr. Blackard. That's what I was going to ask you about last time. I was like, I should just change moniker at this point because Leonard Meltzer barely used online on anything I actually use anymore, so might as well change it. Episode 182.
I don't get an introduction.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not like you ever do anyway.
Maybe, you'll never know. Maybe I was going to say this time, and now I never will.
Now we'll never know your name. All the
Never
people who've been
know.
watching for the last 5.5 years, and they still don't know who you are.
And that's how I like to keep it.
Yeah. What are we talking about today?
We were talking about BTV-Idolatry, BTV-Temptation, and then the predictions for the next album, which is already out, but we haven't heard it yet.
It sounded like you said BTV-Adultery.
I did.
Okay. That's the other one. You said the same one twice. Yeah, BTV, double feature. So, BTV-Idolatry.
I dare Focus to do an episode called BTV-Adultery.
So, BTV-Idolatry, episode 869, written by Sam Suxieri. Honestly, I thought this episode was going to be written by Nathan or by Phil, based on how well they nailed the homage referentially to Magic Guy.
Sam's been doing more episodes recently.
Yeah, because he was the apprentice, but this episode was directed by Phil, I believe.
Yeah.
Who also co-wrote the original Magic Guy.
We'll get to it.
Yeah, so BTV Idolatry. I thought this was a very well done BTV episode.
Gotta get a summary.
Yep, so what happens, Victoria?
So this episode, the framing device is Connie with Harrison Ford. This Harrison Ford reminded me of the Welcome to Hell Harrison Ford.
It was
so much.
It was not a bad impression.
So much, but like so many things he just said reminded me of that episode.
It's fair because I think it was a pretty good impression of Harrison Ford as a person.
But yeah, so I kept on thinking about that throughout the whole episode. It kept on throwing me off. There were actually, and I can't say this about a lot of past BTV episodes, moments that made me laugh in this episode. In a good way.
That's good.
So, yeah. So, Connie and not Indiana Jones, although
Harrison Jones.
Dr. Jones. Is it Harrison Jones?
Yeah.
Subtle. So he's like showing Connie relics and stuff like that throughout the episode. It cuts back to them every now and then. It has like various bits. It does have a bit about the golden calf, which is funny because I taught my children's church group about the golden calf like a couple weeks before I heard this episode. And then the main story bit, which it cuts back to, is Magic Guy Redux 2K 20K19, I guess.
Yeah.
It came out last year. Re-edit Electric Boogaloo, where
2.8
Guy
final remix.
And Madge's marriage falls apart. We'll get more into that after, but then it doesn't fall as apart. They really went out there and they said, hey, you know that one thing that's always kind of bothered Victoria about Gift of the Magi, but she'd never do anything about because that would be counterintuitive to Gift of the Magi's purpose? Let's go out and do that thing. And I did not care for that at all.
Are you talking about the fact that her hair grows back, but he doesn't get to watch back?
Yes.
I mean, they addressed that in the original Magic Guy.
I know, but like they actually like did something about it, where he was like, "Actually, no, I want my watch back."
Uh huh.
You know that Funhouse bit, which I think I mentioned this when we reviewed Gift. No, it's a Bim Bam bit where
Yes,
I
we
mentioned
did.
it when we
Yes.
talked about the original Gift from Magic guy, where she just cuts off her hair and then buys him the watch chain, and then he's like, "Oh, you're not as beautiful now," and then he leaves her for a different girl.
Yep.
And he walks up to her in his pickup line's like, "Hey, like my cool watch and chain," and then they walk off. It's so awful. I was so upset when I saw someone animate that.
So, yeah, our framing device is Dr. Harrison Jones. There's something even more like uncomfortably visceral about referencing the actor's name instead of just the character's name, like
I
putting
know.
Harrison in. I was like, that's weird and wrong. So one of the first sketches was, I think, maybe the funniest one to me, and very apt, which was the Apple keynote that they gave for the iDoll.
I really felt that in my bones, especially since the new iPhone just came out. One of my friends got it and was showing it to me and all its new spiffy features a couple nights ago.
It's funny because, like, Appleberry has been AIO's fake smartphone brand ever since the Green Ring conspiracy. And when that came out, that was just on the very end of the cusp of when, like, the two main cell phone brands were Apple and BlackBerry, if we can remember back that far.
See, the funny thing is, if you think about it, this might mean, since it's BTV, that Appleberries still are the thing. And
well, no, because here's the thing:
invented iPhones.
They already have Victoria. The Apple. It was already supposed to be an Apple phone before. They were just mixing together Apple, iPhone, and BlackBerry.
Yeah, but what if this is just like an entirely made-up thing?
Sorry?
Like, this is basically like a parody of the Appleberry, which, being a parody of a parody, makes it closer to real life. But since it's on a TV show,
I see. Okay. Yeah, so it's funny because, like, the name has stuck around all this time, but it's become very archaic now because obviously BlackBerry, like, basically died so quickly after this, and then Android took over as the main competitor.
I like the name Appleberry. I would, like, eat something that's flavor is Appleberry.
But the Appleberry brand is stuck around Odyssey, even though no one has a BlackBerry anymore.
Dumb Connellsville uses different phone brands. Yeah, we got the Appleberry.
And the name still works because it has, like, a cohesive fruit theme, like you said. But this keynote sketch shows clearly that, like, this is Apple now. There's no BlackBerry vestiges left in this brand.
Unless it's just a fake thing for their fictional TV show.
Who knows? Maybe they'll get sued for libel. Maybe they didn't do any parody name on their end in universe. The iDoll.
Didn't they just, like, straight up say, like, Steve Jobs, though?
No, they said something else. Okay. No, they parried off like Tim Cook or Steve Wozniak's name, I think, not Steve Jobs. Okay. I could be wrong. The iDoll, obviously, like, the name works really well.
That made me laugh.
But it also, like, it matches so well with, like, the societal position that Apple holds, like, compared against other tech companies and stuff. Like, it was very good. It's definitely one of those things that could very easily become bell-bottomed, and, like, future kids won't have any idea the very specific reference that this is making, just the whole culture of, like, what an Apple keynote presentation is specifically, but they did it really well. We had a Scooby-Doo thing. Will Ryan did an excellent and hilarious Shaggy impression.
We had Jay in this episode.
Yeah.
And he wasn't awful.
He was Morty Fishbein.
He was. I was, like, freaking out because
yeah. So
he's baby boy now.
Biggest comeback of the century. Gifts for Magic Guy Part 2.
I don't know how to feel.
They used Will and Chris and like
Connie.
Ethel.
Not Connie, Katie.
Ethel and the porch and everything. Like, it's literally been 31 years. Let that sink in, Victoria. 31 years.
Also, everyone's voices were spot on. They did not sound different in any way.
There were a couple parts where I was like, did they just, like, sample audio from the original episode? Because, like, they matched their own voices and copy the dialogue so well. It was like wild. It was sending me.
Like, that must have been really hard. Because, like, you watch, like, literally anything, and, like, people's voices change and stuff.
Yeah, their voices have changed.
And,
the
like,
fact that Chris was able to still kind of, like, because her voice doesn't sound exactly the same as it did back then, so but she, like, nailed the higher pitched airiness to it so much, and she actually talked about it in the bonus video and did the voice and a couple other voices and stuff. I'll get to that later.
I've seen and listened to so many different things where, like, even just, like, a couple years pass and characters can't, like people can't do a character's voice anymore.
Yeah.
But they just, like...
Well, it does help more when you're older. Your voice doesn't change as much. But
yeah, I guess.
Still,
but still,
30,
like, I've seen this happen with, like, voice actors and stuff, where they can't, like, perfectly emulate a character's voice anymore.
It was incredibly impressive. I can't believe that the watch made its way back around to Fishbine's Jewelers. Also, in the original episode, when this was a story that Whit was telling the kids, it was one thing, but it's weird to me now that the story is on public access television that we're still using Fishbine's Jewelers, because it's a real store in Odyssey, as we learned from Allswell with Boswell.
Maybe they're a sponsor.
Maybe. They want everyone to go in and think that there's a gold mine underneath the shop. That's
going to be what the next big saga is about. It's going to be... it's
the Boswell saga.
It's going to be the Whisperer's meaner cousin coming in and trying to mine. They
told us they were going to do a whole arc about Boswell, and this is where it ties in.
Oh, we cracked the code, but we still have to wait. So that's 31 years later too before we can do that.
I'm just really a sucker for a well-executed callback, and this pandered to me really hard.
I don't know how to feel about the plot, and also the jokes were all the same jokes, which, like, they did make me laugh.
Well, I mean...
I feel like there could have been a bit of new
I felt like
stuff.
It played a pretty well balance between... Because
I don't know how to feel.
The humor in the original was very formulaic. A lot of it involved, like...
wordplay.
It was very wordplay based on taking metaphors literally, interacting with the narrator, obviously, like, Pop's Top-Notch Top Shop, which then in this one they had Fishbine Mines, Fine Gold Mine Finds, which I was like, that's good stuff. It's... Victoria...
I will say, when it started, because Devin told me before I listened to the episode that there was, like, a thing that was a big callback and I wasn't going to expect it. And then I had, like, some guesses floating around in my head, like, I don't know... I can't remember what I was thinking. I was thinking, like, a character coming back or something like that. Like, maybe, like, Leonard or Everett or Richard or something like that. And then...
in BTV, that would be wild.
I don't know.
Could you imagine, though, like, it wasn't scripted? Like,
I guess I didn't really think about the fact that it was BTV.
Eugene is acting on BTV, and then, like, Leonard comes in, and Eugene breaks character because he doesn't know his dad is going to show up, but it's all captured on live camera. That would be...
That sounds like it'd be like a cold open for an episode that's not actually like BTV.
Any given episode of Candid Conversations with Connie.
We need more Candid Conversations so Leonard and Everett can come back.
We do. Victoria, it's been 864 episodes.
But the thing is, I was driving when they announced The Gift of Magic and Guy Part 2, Part 1. And I was doing, like, a big turn, and I was just screaming the entire time. And I was thinking, like, I'm gonna go off the road. You
should stop listening to new episodes while you drive.
I should. I'm gonna get myself hurt.
I thought, just to talk about, like, the theme and, like, the actual non-comedy and narrative stuff for a second, thematically, this episode is very long overdue. Yeah.
I mean, they've done Idolatry.
Yeah, like, obviously, this is not the first episode to talk about how we can subtly let things become too important to us.
This is far better than the Robot Wit episode.
Exactly.
Still don't know what that was all about.
In the, like, direct terms like this, especially when they are, like, look at it as, like, how do we allocate our time? How do we allocate our money? There's not one of us who couldn't say that we can't do better there than we are doing now.
I think the thing that made me laugh the most in the episode was the bit with Harrison Jones about all of his worldly possessions being sentient and him never being aware of this, and the existential horror he undergoes within that 1 minute. That made me laugh.
But yeah, because it's an important thing to talk about, because there is no, I mean, I guess there is theoretically, but almost impossible to reach an absolute perfect level of how we allocate our time and how we allocate our money towards God things. And so looking at self-examining how we allocate those resources and the other resources we have around us, it's a hard truth that we all have to continually strive to improve, because none of us are doing as good as we could be in that area. So I was glad that we had an episode that more like that focused on it with enough time and enough different elements to like dig into exactly how this applies to us a little more, you know, applicably than Idle Minds, where it's like chocolate wit, football wit. Sorry, what was that, Victoria?
Idle Minds is bad. That is one of the few half episodes I will not stand up for at all.
I think I don't remember if we mentioned this before on camera, but fun fact for those who never noticed, the song that plays when Guy opens his watch, both now and in the original episode, is the same song that plays when the steps to the bedroom slides out in Eleanor and Chidi's house in season 1 of The Good Place.
If any of you have seen The Good Place, go watch The Good Place. It just ended, and I cried for 10 years.
Good, I'm glad you finally watched the finale.
You knew I did.
No, I knew you did. I'm just saying that I'm glad that you did, because you waited for a while, but, and I thought that was funny, because you're like, I don't want to let go, I don't want it to end. Me. And I was like, this is very apropos of the finale. Yeah,
I know. I really felt that when I was watching it. Thanks for bringing it up again, Devin. Yeah. The thing that hurts the most is I watched the last 3 episodes all back to back. And I was basically, because of that, I think about for 2.5 solid hours just crying endlessly. So that was an experience.
Yeah, like I said before, there's some clips here. The one that really got to me was when Madge does her delight cry, where I was like, I honestly can't tell if Chris replicated it that well or if they just sampled the original audio.
I feel like they didn't sample any of the original audio.
I don't think they did.
I think they're just all that talented.
I don't think they did, because I think the fidelity of the audio itself would be noticeable, because they were recording on reel-to-reel back then.
And I also, like, if there are any discrepancies we haven't noticed, you definitely would, hearing it, like, straight up back to back. But I don't really think that would be a
episode a lot of times.
Yes, that is true.
We owned.
That is very true.
So, yeah, Jay was here. I'm glad that that BTV allows him to still do, like, on-camera work. He's still getting to
likes acting so much. I'm just a sucker for characters who, like, are kind of jerks or something like that, but they're just really into this one thing that they just, like, geek out about, like, all the time. You really
like characters like that, Victoria? I'm only just finding out now.
There's this book series I'm reading the last one of, which, again, I took forever to get to the final installment, even though I've had it for a long time, where it's just one of the main characters is just, like, a horrible person, but he really likes being sneaky, and he just gets so excited whenever he can just, like, sneak around his house. It's really cute. Anyway.
So, yeah, Sam, like we said, he did a phenomenal job at recreating the original Imagine Guy and taking, like, the same forms of formulaic jokes from the original and creating new ones that perfectly match the style of the original, calling back specific lines and gags and stuff like that. They even had, like, they're like, oh, you know, let's go split a child's diet portion mini cheeseburger at the end. And it's like, all these iconic lines, iconic enough that I can say split a child's diet portion mini cheeseburger, and I know all of the words in that phrase in the order that it's supposed to come in.
I feel like now that I'm an adult and I've actually like lived in a place and had to buy things and worry about amenities and actually learn what amenities are and what that word means. Listening to Madge and Guy and all the things they had to sell to pay off the other things just stressed me out so bad. And I was like, please, for the love of God, I will give you plates. Like, I will buy you plates myself. Well, you can't keep doing this.
I don't know.
Like, oh, we don't have cups, so let me bring out a 10-liter gallon hat, which I would question you guys owning if you weren't married to Will Smith. But not Will Smith.
Also, like, 10-liter gallon hat.
But why did I say Will Smith?
Because we talked about Will Smith and Will Ryan and Will someone else last time.
Yeah. I meant to say Will Ryan.
Honestly, until the second time you repeated it, I didn't even notice. I just heard Will Ryan.
Yeah. Y'all knew what I was talking about.
Yeah, I don't know if you even remember or know this, Victoria. I don't know if you've read the original Gift of the Magi.
Eugene, but in Haunted Mansion, Disney's Haunted Mansion movie. I'm just trying to think of weird...
Have you read the original, Victoria?
Like the story?
Yes.
I mean, I've heard it. Is it like a book?
It's a short
story. Isn't it really short? Yeah,
it's a short story.
I don't think I've ever like straight up read it, but I
have, and
had it summarized.
From Madge and Guy, the fact that all the money they have in the world is $1.87 is accurate to the original. That is the same precise amount.
What like time period is the original?
I believe it was written around the turn of the century, so end of the 1800s, beginning of the 1900s, I think.
Oh, okay. So yeah, it's real.
It's still not very much money.
Yeah, but like, oh wait. No inflation, that'd be like even less. Or would it be more? It would
be more, but...
It'd be more.
Still,
so he's richer than them.
Like $4 to our name. That's still not very much money. It's still not very much money, Victoria.
They will take what they can get, trust me.
I'm just saying...
I've known them for 31 years.
I'm just saying, in the original Madge and Guy, when they say that's all the money we have, that's not like bleak hyperbole. That's actually canon to the actual story.
So it is like a husband and wife.
Yes.
Why is it Magi?
Because I don't know, because people associate gift giving with the Magi, because they like, I mean, they definitely didn't sacrifice everything they had because, you know, they were very rich, obviously. I mean, like, you know, Whit said in the original episode at the end, like, people, especially when, you know, we're talking about like Victorian or early Edwardian times back then, there was this very strong association with the Magi, I guess, of like being the inventors of gift giving or something like that.
I had to explain to like basically everyone who's younger than me at this year's Christmas musical.
At the Christmas musical?
The Christmas musical.
Yes.
Like, not what the gifts were that the wise men gave Jesus, but like why they were those gifts specifically, because they just like did not know. Yeah. They didn't know. They were like, what's he gonna do with the frankincense and myrrh? He can't do anything with that. And I was like, okay, this is... So like one was used for healing and the other one was just like incense or something like that, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, I mean, they weren't really giving them for like practical reasons.
No,
I mean,
I know. It was like to sell
uses.
To like get more money. So
well, that wasn't why they were giving it to them. That is what they used it for, I think, because they had to flee to Egypt. But they just gave them...
No, they already were in Egypt.
Not when the Magi visited them.
But they'd already left Bethlehem.
No.
Yeah?
Because the Magi visited them and then came back, didn't go back to Herod in Jerusalem. That was the whole point, was they told Herod they were going to Bethlehem.
Oh, like the shepherds, but like the star.
Uh-huh.
They left the stable. And then the wise men found them when after Jesus was baptized, not baptized, circumcised.
That is what? No.
Yeah.
He was circumcised when he was 8 days old.
Okay,
That's
whatever.
when Simeon met him.
The temple, when they saw him like at the temple.
I mean,
after.
in the star, that's when it happened, but they still found him in Bethlehem.
Oh.
They went back to Bethlehem. I mean, in reality, people often think that Jesus was as old as 2 years old by the time that he met the wise men and then fled to Egypt. But
the wise men just got really lost in the desert.
it was definitely Bethlehem, because that's the whole point, is that they went to Jerusalem and then the priests were like,
okay,
go to Bethlehem.
What do you want to rate this? We've been talking about this forever.
Yeah. The video stuff. So the video is focused on gold mining. They go to a museum and there's gold panning and stuff, because that's how Guy got rich, was a gold mine. It's a bit of a stretch. We see Chris come into the Foley studio and talk about being Madge again. I think this is the first time they've properly interviewed cast or crew about the show in these video documentaries, so that was nice. She talks about like the physicality of her characters, as she does a few different voices, and talks about like how she physically expresses them to get into the voices.
Talks about how she actually threw herself into a body of water when she played Maud.
Yeah. I learned from the mining bit how an acetylene lamp works, which was very cool. We never had that at our mining museum, but they probably didn't get to go as deep into the actual mine as we always did before.
We probably got more radiation poisoning than they did. So.
Well, yes, that's true, but that's from living in Castlegar, not from visiting Roslyn.
A little kid, I think from the reading club, thought that clouds came from Trail because
there's a whole political cartoon to be pulled out of that. The web quest pointed out that the episode art for this episode, which is Connie dresses Indiana Jones in the museum, is the third episode/album art that has dressed a main character as Indiana Jones.
The other's Jason.
Yeah.
And then what?
Yeah, I had to look for
in the last episodes.
I couldn't think of what the other one, the not Jason 27 one.
I did it faster than you.
Went on the cover of the last episode.
I win. What do I win?
Nothing.
Either say the next review and it'd be like a good.
Not yet. What do you give this episode, Victoria?
I'm gonna give it a 3.8 out of 5. Because I still don't know how to feel about the Magic Guy stuff. I think I just need to listen to it a couple more times, like fully.
I understand. You just feel like it was like jumping the shark, or that it like revived it and twisted it off in a way that kind of like...
Like I enjoyed it, but I just want to make sure that like I genuinely enjoyed it.
Uh-huh. And it wasn't just the excitement of like
yeah, I just wasn't... and I didn't enjoy it because like... nostalgia specifically, and just being excited, and
yes,
and having to focus on something that wasn't academia related, because that's why I was driving in the first place.
I am gonna give it a 4.8. I think honestly this was my favorite BTV episode since Bernard left.
Oh, this is definitely the best one since Bernard left.
Yeah, the Magic Guy stuff, overall, it was a great callback. It was very well executed, just in terms of, like I said, the jokes and the voice acting, they nailed replicating it so well, both on an audio level, an acting level, and also on the writing level, where they took the framework of what the original was, and they created new content out of that still was perfectly in line with the original, to a degree that was very impressive. Like I said, Sam did a great job on that, but I feel like there's probably a lot of props to give to Phil, because he directed this one and he wrote the original with Steve Harris. The theming of it was great. It was a great exploration of the topic. They like covered all of the different aspects of things that I wanted them to, like looking at it in the past biblically and looking at it now and how those relate to each other. How do we see that in our life today, and what do we do about it? Which is basically what I want from any kind of theme like this. And so when they can execute on that well, That's big points. The Apple keynote sketch it was very apt, and it worked on a number of different levels that integrated really well. And like I said, I feel like it's something that in the future, possibly, like, the cohesion of the writing there will probably be lost to time as people lose, like, remembrance or knowledge of specifically all the different aspects that it's referencing together. But listening to it in the moment now, where I do get it, it was very good. So yeah, I took off a couple decimal points because, yeah, I feel like the shift in, like, kind of theme and the nature of Madge and Guy's relationship between the original and this one doesn't seem to, like, line up as well as in terms of, like, making sense for it to be a sequel to this. And that was the thing that kind of threw me about it on an overall scale. But on, like, a minute scale in terms of the dialogue and stuff like that, absolutely nailed it. Yeah.
I didn't really say anything about the theming either. It was good. It made me think a lot. I thought it was done really well, and I wish the theming was done that well in lots of other episodes.
Yeah, like, it's, for me personally, it's something I try to think about basically every time that I buy something, is I try and, like, weigh the budget in my head of, like, how much have I spent on things that are on me that are non-essential versus, like, things that are helping others, whether it's, like, stuff that's going directly to the church or to, like, to charities or to the homeless or things like that, and try and, like, be balancing out in my mind, examining how I prioritize the weight of how I, like, spend stuff. Since I'm so busy with work and I can't give as much time, so I try and take that time to make the money that I can then allocate out like that. So it's like, it's an important thing for us to always be thinking about. I remember at church here in Vancouver a number of years ago, the pastor was talking about this woman that he knew who would not purchase anything non-essential unless she could think of a way that she could use it in some way to, like, show God's love to other people. Whether it was, like, buying a book or some new fancy kitchen utensil or something like that, or a movie. Like, every single purchase, that was the question she asked herself, and if there wasn't a reason or a way that she could think of that she could use this to express God's love to someone, then she didn't purchase it.
I don't know why, but when you said new fancy kitchen utensil, I just thought fork.
Jumbo fork. She didn't want to buy the jumbo fork. She didn't want to get it.
I need a fork, but I don't know what I'm going to do with it, so I don't have any forks. I'll use my hands. That's why God gave them to me.
My drawer's just full of dingle hoppers. What'll I do? So, that's it for BTV-Idolatry, unless you have anything else to add. Okay, let's wind back a few more albums and talk about BTV-Temptation. So, another BTV episode now, Temptation, album 49, episode 622, written by Nathan Hubler. What happens at BTV-Temptation, Victoria?
Okay, so in this episode, the main through-line story is about a little girl with a plant, and the plant is basically...
That is not the main story. The main story is Solomon. The plant story is story time with Connie.
Yeah, but I like the plant one more.
I mean, I do like it very much.
It's more important to me. Okay, so the main through-line story is the one with Solomon and his wives and stuff, and them getting...
His wives and stuff. That's the G way of putting it.
And no, I meant, like, all the writing he does and stuff like that.
Yes.
And all the different idols and temples.
Uh-huh.
That's what I meant by stuff. You sicko. Anyway, so then there's also the other main story is and there's, like, of course, all, like, the little snippets with, like, verses and stuff like that, and quick demonstrations. There's a story about a little girl, and she's a plant, and the plant is basically a huge jerk. Reminds me of Audrey too, a little bit. but does not eat people. Does not eat people. Unless. You've never seen Little Shop of Horrors?
I have not.
You should watch it one day, but watch the original ending, because there's two, and the alternate ending is bad. I will not take any criticism on that, even though lots of people like your second one more, because the first one's more upsetting. Anyway, so the planet's basically like, do what I want, like Audrey too, and then the girl does what she wants, and he wants, and it ends bad. And then the dad with the voice of Jesus comes in, and he's just like, hey, yo, what's up? And then helps the little girl. He says exactly that. And then it ends good. There's this voice which I call the Jesus voice, which is the voice in literally anything where you can be like, this sounds like a gentleman.
Well, also with like a little bit of ethereal reverb put on it.
Yeah, and that's just how the Jesus voice is done, TM.
So
BTV-Temptation is up there with Compassion and Forgiveness as, in my opinion, the BTV trinity of best episodes.
This is the final Bernard BTV, the final pre-second hiatus BTV, album 49. It opens with Brian Dern taking over the microphone.
I just had to. That's my Brian Dern.
Yeah, you know how he sounds with that southern New York accent.
We're in this elevator and we're gonna die.
We're gonna die, I say. Now I may be just a small town shock jockey. I really miss...
Rusty, tell me all the secrets about Mr. Whitaker. So we got our Maury voice, and we got our Brian Dern.
I really miss Corey Burton's voice, especially because I was in the middle of, like, playing Calm while this was happening, so I was hearing him as Diz. There's a lot of Dern in this episode.
Oh, just wait till you go to Cage 2, where you're like, oh, okay, I'm over him as Diz, because now Diz is Christopher Lee. And then Jensen swoops in, and he's just like, hey, I'm Corey Burton.
I thought you were going to say, I'm over him because of Ienzo.
I don't like Anthem, as you know, but I'm very emotional over literally anything connected to Ienzo.
What? I noticed in the chat that you can send any medal that you have, and I was just going to send you my Ienzo one.
Aww. Ienzo was the first supernova I ever got, and I was so excited. I was very emotional. Anyway.
So, I want to go on record here, vis-a-vis Dern's rant at the beginning, to say that I've never used a mouse move to the left side of the keyboard in my life. What is he talking about?
I think the first time I heard this, I went up to you and I was like, do you do this thing?
I will use a trackpad with either hand, but I prefer the right hand, but I'll use the left in a pinch.
I'll use a trackpad with either hand.
I mean, because here's the thing, like, the shortcuts for keyboards and controls for gaming and stuff are all designed assuming your right hand is on the mouse, so it's not something that you can, like, really easily switch. One of my coworkers who is left-handed, I guess.
I use my right hand for snacking, so I gotta use my left hand for the keyboard.
Didn't realize that you could do this, but they switched, like, mouse 1 and mouse 2, so the left and right click were reversed, and I, like, went to do something on their computer, and I was, like, clicking on stuff, and it was just, like, right-clicking on everything. I couldn't figure out what was happening, and someone was like, oh, they, like, left-handed switched it, and I was like... So I had to right-click to left-click.
You said no and threw it out the window.
Yeah.
Hashtag not all left-handers.
Yeah, I know. I was like...
I still love
not to be cliche and be like...
I still really love the Sawbones left-hand episode, because although it was one of the most horrible things I've ever heard, all the awful things that happened to left-handed people, the thing that's always stuck with me, and I think is absolutely incredible, is the fact that people, is the handshake thing, the explanation for handshakes, because it gives left-handed people so much raw power that they were unaware of, because for people who don't know, people carried their swords with their right hand, so to prove that they weren't going to stab like shank anyone when meeting them to show peace, they would put it in their left hand because that was their non-sword dominant hand, and shake with their right hand, the power hand, at the time. But anyone who's left-handed, I was listening to this, and I was just like, they can just go off. Like, they're the most powerful people in the room now because no one will know.
It's the same reason why medieval castles had spiral staircases that went counterclockwise as they ascended, and they were also very like steep with tall steps, because if you were an invading force, you would be going up the stairs, and since it goes counterclockwise, you would need to hold onto the railing with your right hand, so you couldn't use a sword. But if you were the defending force, you'd be coming down the stairs, you can hold the railing with your left hand and right hand with the sword to attack.
I thought you were going to say they didn't think that left-handed people could walk counterclockwise, so it would deter them from trying to invade.
No, it meant that, like, yeah, that it would, if you were right-handed, you would have a huge advantage if you were defending and you had the high ground on a staircase, if it was spiraled in that direction. It's also the reason... you just
make a troop of left-handed people, and then you just let them loose.
It's also the reason why the buttons on shirts are different on men's and women's, like which one is folded over which.
Honestly, I never even noticed that buttons were on different sides until it was pointed out to me.
I didn't notice it until it was pointed out, and on men's, the left is usually over top, so that they could draw their sword without it like getting caught in the button flap. And on women's, it's on the opposite side, because the men would do up their own buttons, but the women who had button clothes, which back then, like, you would be rich, and they would have like a maid or a hand servant who was like doing it on them. And so it was designed to be done the same way as if you were doing it to yourself. And so since it was someone else doing it to a person, it was backwards.
Dude, that's so inconsiderate. My sword is going to snag on my buttons.
I know. Unless you just,
inconsiderate.
You just need to get a shirt.
People with swords
left in
who
front.
Aren't men.
Anyways.
No, I want to keep talking.
Look, I'm always down to talk about the weird far-reaching implications of hand chirality on society.
I don't even know what chirality means. Let's talk about BTV. Hi guys, welcome to this episode, Reed.
Okay, so Solomon and his wisdom and knowledge. I know it's for the purpose of the comedies, but I'm always really surprised that this episode never makes an effort to footnote the difference between wisdom and knowledge. Because the examples that they give in terms of like, oh, Solomon, he's so wise, they hop back and forth like every single example. And I know it's like to be comedy that is like, oh, do you want to know the chief export of Slovakia? But I'm surprised that they don't have a little footnote in there to be like, hey, teachable moment, here's the difference. Because, they've like glancingly mentioned it in other episodes before and like due for a change.
They could do that in like a quick little, like, and now you know, or something like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, they probably wouldn't do it here because
snippet.
Wisdom and knowledge isn't the theme of the episode.
I know, but...
we also...
I didn't understand the difference between wisdom and knowledge until
D&D.
I got more into D&D. And then through that and seeing how characters acted, I was like, oh, wisdom is like when you give sagely advice, and knowledge is when you're like book smart and stuff.
In the same bit with that, there we get, oof, more Bill Cosby impersonations past their expiration date. Yeah. That's like...
Nothing really to say about that.
Reading the Homestuck books and like reading the author footnotes, because throughout Act 5 and 4 there's like a lot of John using the Crosby top, and there's not a single page where it appears where Hussey fails to like make a note of like yeah. So the Huckleberry Bush sketch. I've always really, really loved this sketch. It's one of my favorite sketches of all time, BTV.
Honestly, this, as you can probably tell, is basically the only thing I remember this episode for. But, like, I really love it. It's also why I really love Forgiveness and Compassion, because, like, the big stories in those ones, I think, are also really good. Like, with the cobbler and then the fairy tale one.
So the Huckleberry Bush sketch is one of these ones, honestly, is a sketch that stands out across all of Odyssey as doing an incredible job at portraying a theme like more realistically in the practical advice that it gives to listeners than I would have given them credit for. In that it shows that like you've been feeding this temptation for a while. Those roots are deep. You can't just pull it up now. you can like live with it now, but you're living with it, and you can dampen it and suppress it and put a fence around it. But you can't pull those roots up. They have settled in there. And this illustration shows so well how like temptation is something that like you can, once it gets the roots and, you know, it's going to be there. There's always going to be that trace. And, you know, like they talk about in like Psych 101, every time that you fail to that instinct and get back in, the roots get so much stronger. Every time, what's the term for it? Like the like extinction? No, like the like extinction or something like that, of like how you have to like completely cut off something 100% to get rid of the behavior. And if you like give a little bit leniency, then it reinforces it even more than if you hadn't been cutting it off before. It's like really important in like training dogs and stuff like that.
I don't remember.
It's like extinction or something like that, of like you have to like completely purge it.
Addiction is what killed the dinosaurs.
Yeah. So yeah, the illustration of like shutting out temptation and the way that it showed here is something that I tried to carry closely with me ever since I first heard this episode, Against the Wiles of the World as a teenager and stuff. I remember specifically in French 12 when we read Le Petit Prince, I was so like on top of the day that we talked about the metaphor of the baobab trees for addiction, because it's like the exact same as the sketch. Do you remember that part of the book?
We never read Le Petit Prince.
On the Asteroid Bay 600, there are baobab trees, which I already knew of from the Madagascar video game.
See, I saw the play with you,
yes,
but I didn't really understand what was going on super well.
The trees grow there, and
I didn't read the book.
There are trees in Africa, the baobab trees, and they are huge. Like their width is absolutely enormous, and their height is enormous. And the seeds land on the asteroid, and you have to pull them up when they're small, because once the roots take root and it starts to grow, then it's impossible to uproot them. So you have to like nip it in the bud, or it's impossible to get rid of it, and it'll keep on growing until it will like destroy the asteroid.
I still don't really know like what Le Petit Prince is about. I know they made an animated movie, but I don't know like how good it was.
You should read the book. It's short and it's good. It's a very short children's book. It's funny. I remember.
Should I read it in English? I'm not sure if I'd make it all the way through. No, I should read it in French.
Yeah, it's short.
Yeah. It
was written by Saint-Exupéry in the 30s, I think, or thereabouts, and
I know there's pictures. I have like one of my screensaver images that goes by is the prince on an asteroid, and it's just like, I just want to be left alone, and he's like sitting on a chair and it makes me sad.
Right at the beginning of the book, it comments on like there are 1 billion people, or there's 2 billion people in the world, it says. And I remember reading that and I was like, oh, that's kind of like a weird misfact, like mistake or mistranslation or whatever to put in there. And it took me like a hot minute before I was like, wait, no, that was how small the world was 90 years ago, 80 years ago at the time.
Wait, it came out in like 1910?
Like 1930s, I think.
Okay. And
I was like, wow, yeah, the world really was that much less populous just 100 years ago. That's how explosively exponential human population growth is.
Where are we now, like 4 point
like
something?
8.
Oh.
But it was only like 2 before World War II.
Because get living or get dying.
Because of baby boomers. So yeah, I always think of that with this, because it's an extremely similar metaphor of talking about addiction and temptation being represented by plants with deep roots that can't be pulled up as soon as they get past the seedling. When I was young, listening to the Solomon sketch, I was, on the one hand, surprised that they played the whole like 300 wives and 700 concubines as face up as they did from like a mature topic perspective. But I also thought, it was like, oh, it's so funny how they showed him being like unable to remember anyone's names and writing all these proverbs complaining about a nagging wife, because like, oh man, all these wives, but yeah, that's how it would be. Now I look back and go like, while I understand the causality, it is pretty gross that Solomon wrote as many proverbs as he did about how annoying wives are for nagging you, and putting that into scripture forever It comes up so many different times in different chapters. Like, it became less funny once I realized that wasn't a joke in the episode and that he actually has a whole bunch of proverbs talking about, like,
the
nagging wives.
The leaky faucet.
Yeah. That literally is, like, a bunch of proverbs that are spread out throughout the whole book.
I, like, was asked about Solomon by my children's church class because they somehow find every single uncomfortable topic to talk about.
There's a lot of them in the Bible.
In the whole Bible. Did I tell you they were asking me about Joseph's sister?
Yes.
Like what happened to
that's
her?
how I found out you were teaching children's church.
Yeah.
Or Sunday school.
It's like I mentioned, because they were asking me, oh yeah, I was talking about Job. I was teaching on Job, and they were like, why didn't he just divorce his wife? And I was like, divorce was not a thing back then you could do until Henry VIII. And then...
I mean, it was. Divorce existed.
Yeah, but it was more taboo and stuff. And it wasn't, like, popularized until Henry
Technically,
VIII.
It wasn't taboo to divorce.
Still...
It was just taboo to get remarried after divorce.
Yeah, but also it was, like, hard to get divorced.
Because the Bible definitely says, like, hey, if you're being abused, dump them. Or if you're being cheated on,
get out of there.
Dump them. You cancel.
But so then someone was asking me about, like, how, and I was like, oh, he might have just gotten, like, remarried or something. I don't know. And then people are like, well, you can have multiple, like, people you marry. And I was like, yeah, like Solomon. Someone was like, how many wives did Solomon have? I was like, well, he didn't just have wives. He also had concubines.
He also had friends.
And then they're like, what are concubines? And I was
buddies.
like, it's like girlfriends.
Why would you?
And then I just ended.
Why wouldn't you have just said 1,000 wives?
Because I wanted to be more accurate. I don't know when to stop
and
talking.
700 partners. Oh, for chess? Oh,
yes.
Victoria. So, yeah, on that topic...
They're the ones who think they're going to get murdered by the Ark of the Covenant suddenly popping up in front of them like the TARDIS. Although, I will say, no one's mentioned that last month. So I think they've gotten over their fear, at least enough
to forget
not to bring it up.
So, yeah, like, it really bugs me when reading Proverbs. Like, I'm glad that this episode actually accurately portrays how disastrously sex-crazed Solomon became and the harm that it caused. I
didn't even know what his deal was. I remember we were listening to this one coming back from the lake once, and I was like, why did he have so many wives? And Mom was like, 'cause, you know. And I was like, no, I don't. And then she started explaining it to me. I was like, I still don't understand.
That should have been our first clue. But, I mean, and here's the thing to think about, like, the wives, the ones that he actually married, probably wasn't for romantic reasons at all.
No.
Like, the only reason he married the ones that he married was purely for political reasons, which really, I was thinking about it while listening to this episode. Like, I'm amazed that Israel didn't gain more land at all throughout the course of this. Like, he had 300 politically arranged marriages,
like,
and yet he
Solomon, you're just gonna get, like, a yard,
and yet
literally. And not even, like, a yard long, just literally my backyard if you marry her. It's like, I'm fine with that.
Like, their borders didn't move at all, so what was he doing politically?
We both know what he was doing.
No, but, like, what was the political purpose of these marriages? Because that was the reason he married them. If it wasn't for a political reason, they just would have
maybe it was to, like,
gone into the concubine bin.
Continue upholding, like...
Yeah, then my guess is it was just to maintain levels of political relationships.
Like...
It's wild.
On one hand, the land didn't get any bigger...
But it
also didn't get any smaller.
Yeah, that was my only guess. Also, I should acknowledge that even though it didn't become part of Israel, the children that Solomon had with the Queen of Sheba...
The chillins.
Did comprise the royal family of Ethiopia for the next 3,000 years, up until the middle of the last century, as a single dynasty unbroken from Solomon's descendants.
Solomon became the king in the funniest possible way.
What? Because of Absalom dying?
No, because, like, Solomon, when he became king, that was, like, the chapter you and me and Gabe read.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, with his brother partying in the other room.
Yes.
And they can just faintly hear, like, the synth in the background and, like, the drums and stuff, like... and it's like, I now baptize you king. And it's like, hey, everyone, get out of my house.
It was like a Vegas marriage of a coronation.
It was so funny. How have they not made a move? How has Hollywood not gotten on that yet?
Political thriller, modern day AIOO, Solomon becomes king of Israel.
It's so good.
Okay, yeah, so like I was saying, I'm glad the episode portrays Solomon accurately. I just wish that it hadn't, like, literally become baked into Proverbs IRL like that as something that people... Because people read Proverbs as a standalone book apart from the books of history. Like, so without the context of, like, that, it just becomes, here's a proverb.
So Devin gives this episode 5 out of 5, and Proverbs 2 out of 5.
This episode, honestly, it's really just the Corey and Jess show, also featuring some other people.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say before when we were talking about the bush. Not Jeff.
Jess.
What am I talking about? Jess does a really good job. I can't say names tonight. But yeah, I think the reason why the plant doesn't creep me out as much as it probably otherwise would is solely because he's voiced by Jess. If it was some strange voice I'd never heard on Odyssey,
I'm trying to think who does the Jesus voice in this. Is the same person who does the magic mirror in as Hal in the Seven Deadly Dwarfs.
Comforting presence.
But if you take like his like HAL 9000 tone that he uses in that episode, and that was the voice of the bush, then it would be creepy.
Also, think about the implications of that. That would be awful if the bush and Jesus are voiced by the same voice.
Well, I'm saying there was a different voice for the dad. Also, the dad isn't actually Jesus. Well, I mean, I guess he is, but you know,
the dad is Jesus. Devin. Like, oh, you didn't hear? You didn't know?
Let's read some things. Album 49.
I don't think I've ever said this. I really like the album artwork for 49.
It's Grady.
Just
get some new socks, kid.
Heck yeah.
Okay, Wooing Wooten, A lesson from Mike I was thinking about a lot today, obviously, because of Evan Hansen.
I was, like, trying to explain Dear Evan Hansen's plot without any spoilers to Mom, because she was like, I don't know what it's about. And I was like, it's about this boy who has a hard time, and there's this other boy named Connor, and their lives get entangled because of something related to Connor, and then Evan has to deal with the fallout, and that's
a very spoiler-free summary.
Yeah. I did mention the word suicide, though, at one point, and I was like, that's probably not spoiler-free anymore. I didn't say who died, though. So.
Oh, well, here you go, Victoria. Sound bites. BTV-Temptation was originally written for Bart Rathbone to be the evil Huckleberry Bush in the Storytime with Connie segment. The plant even occasionally broke character with lines like, "You can't chop me down, I'm too strong, almost as strong as the duct tape they have on sale right now at the Electric Palace." Unfortunately, Walker Edmiston, who voices Bart, became ill and couldn't record. Jess Harnell filled in, voicing a character who sounded like Academy Award-winning actor Joe Pesci, born 1943?
Joe Pesci is really old.
Wow.
Yeah, he was just in a movie that was... Once Upon a Time in Hollywood or whatever?
No, it was The Irishman, wasn't it?
Yeah, The Irishman, and they used, like, the de-aging, like, CGI on him and stuff.
Wow, Joe Pesci is old.
Pesci
That's funny. I forgot about that.
Like, an old boy.
Bart sneaking advertising lines into BTV.
I think I definitely like Jess doing it more than I would have liked, like if it was a Bart voice.
Is there anything else? That's all about BTV-Temptation. So, I'm going to give this episode 4.9 out of 5. Even higher. This is maybe my favorite, or like it's right at the top tier of my favorite BTVs. They cover this topic really well, especially the Huckleberry Bush sketch. Like I said, it covers the idea of not just temptation, but addiction really well, and understanding how the two play into each other, and how like relapsing isn't the end, but every time you relapse, it makes things worse. And the idea that, like, even if you decide, like, okay, I'm shutting this out, and, like, it's behind me now, it is still there, and it will still always be there with you, and it will get fainter with time. It'll get easier to not hear the Huckleberry Bush, but it is always with you as a result of that. And that, every time I think about that, I'm like, that is really real and very, like, impressively conveyed accurately and, like, in a way that kids will get. And, you know, that's always my main metric for themes on this show. And so they absolutely nailed it with that. Solomon, given the adult nature of the story overall, I thought that they managed to frame it very, like, admirably well in a way that, like, made it okay for kids, but also still, like, did a good job at poking fun at the, like, sorry, can we hurry this up? I have another wedding in 15 minutes kind of
like
thing.
All the kids, like, when I was telling them about, like, how many wives and concubines Solomon had, they were like, wouldn't he, like, forget their names and stuff like that? And I was, like, explaining all the jokes in this episode, and they're like, yeah, that probably would happen. That makes
it's funny.
sense. And, like, some of the kids in my Sunday school class already listened to Odyssey, so, like, they've already heard this episode.
I was thinking about how in this episode, like, Bernard says Solomon had over 700 wives eventually. And so when they're talking about the wives in this episode, honestly, most of the time, they're probably only talking about the concubines and not even the ones who are his actual wives. Because honestly, I don't know if he ever even slept with any of the wives except for the ones that, like, produced children, because he's probably busy enough with
if they were hot,
with the concubines.
If they were hot, he would have.
You know,
like, also, don't you, like, have to consummate your marriage if you're royalty or whatever?
I mean, in British Middle Age culture, you did, right? I mean, there's a lot of different cultures and ideas around marriage and all that throughout history and the world, so who knows, Victoria? Anyway,
I feel like you've already said everything there is to say, basically. This episode's real good.
This discussion of Solomon helps us firmly stay in the black and white area of, like, plausible deniability when it comes to YouTube's new, like, crackdown on made for kids, not made for kids content. So don't worry, we talked about it, so now we can still say we're not made for kids, so we don't have to turn off comments and like, block everyone from watching our channel.
I don't remember what I was about to say. Anyway, I think I'll give this one a 5 out of 5. I think it's real good.
Real neat. The end of review.
It's real neat.
Okay, it is time to talk about...
You never rated...
I gave my rating first.
Oh, never mind. I didn't sound up for that.
It was 4.9. It's time to talk about album 68 predictions, Victoria. It's going to be here so soon.
Ooh,
we need to do...
I have seen the artwork, so it's not going to be a surprise for me. Every time I open the OAC, it's there.
Okay, let's stop this recording so we can talk about the new album. So, album 68. It is called Out of the Blue.
Are you going to send me stuff?
What?
You going to send me gubs?
No, I said I'm going to as it happens. So we can both experience
also, I haven't gotten any of my con stuff yet.
Oh, you should ask Alex about that then.
Okay.
That's on you. Just go pick it up. Out of the Blue, album 68. We'll do the art at the end, like we usually do. Get ready, guys. It begins airing December 19th, 2019.
Oh, dude. We're so close.
I know. It feels like just yesterday. Okay, here's the description. Victoria, you can read it, and I'll read it along with you for the first time, because I haven't read it yet. There you go.
Wait. Hey, when should I get my gubs?
Alex?
Guns! No!
What do you have there? And then Alex is like, you mean... Did you send as guns?
It sent as guns because it auto-corrected.
This is why I don't have autocorrect on my computer. Only on my phone. Do you want to read the description?
Okay. Jaws drop and eyes are opened. The surprise is happening around the town of Odyssey. Have you heard this?
No, that's what I'm saying. I haven't read it yet.
Everyone is finding or learning something unexpected when Connie's roommate Jillian, yes, more Jillian episodes,
she's
sets
on the
out
album
to find a job. The hunt takes her all over town. Dude, if she gets a job with Jason, I am going to be so happy. But whether it's destroying a window at display at Triple J Antiques, yes, more Jason and Jillian. Causing chaos at Odyssey General Hospital. It's like a horse loose in the hospital. Trying her hand at meteorology. She just can't catch a break. I want to see Jillian and Katrina interact. Because I don't think we've seen them.
We have not. Definitely
before.
not. But we will in Ocean's 9.
That'd be a unique experience I'd be into. Will she ever find the perfect fit for her unique skills? We're like halfway. We're over halfway through. It's still talking about Jillian. I'm hoping that this whole album
all
is
Jillian,
just
all the
Jillian
time.
searching for a job. I'd be really into that. Meanwhile, Penny and Wooten have a wonderful surprise to share when her parents come for a visit. If they can ever find the right time to tell them, are they gonna have a kid?
That's the thing I glanced right before I sent it to you.
Oh,
when I was like,
and Wyatt resorts to using extraordinary methods when he uses a lie detector to show his sister Bridget how much he misses hanging out with her. Aww. Is Wyatt that one kid who's been hanging out with the Parkers?
Yeah. That one kid. We were just talking about him.
I know, but that was like forever ago. We haven't recorded in a long time.
The
biggest surprises won't be revealed until you listen to these 6 adventures. Oh, that's new. Okay. Don't miss a single twist, turn, or bombshell on Odyssey. It's like we just gave you 2 complete synopses. We're not going to tell you anymore, you little greedy trolls. Get out of here.
I mean, they're at least implying that it's a kid. Which could be a red herring.
Can I get points for predicting the Jason Jillian stuff before it happens, before I read it?
Immediately before you read it.
Immediately, it was the next sentence. Dude,
she's going to try and work with Jason, Victoria.
More Jason. I'm so happy. The real question is, why are they working together with antiques? And not secret agent stuff.
It's a cover, Victoria. It is a
cover. Yes, we're on the same page. Dude, she is the spy wife that Jason always needed but never had. She's the spife. She's the spife girl. I love her so much.
It's perfect because Connie was already in Totally Spies. So, it's just all... And the Wooten was Jerry.
Yeah.
It all
fits
together.
Dude, I'm having a hard time caring about anything anymore in Odyssey that isn't Jillian and Jason. Like, in the wake of how good they are. No, forget about Maury. Give me more Jillian and Jason.
Here are the episode titles.
You know how we said, what if Jillian's too young for Jason?
Mm-hmm.
What if Jason's too young for Jillian is the real plot twist? Jillian's an immortal is what I am
Episode
saying.
880. Good job! ! Are
you gonna send these to me?
Well, you read the whole description, so I figured maybe I would read the episode titles.
Can I still see them anywhere?
Well, because I wanted you to hear them from my mouth so you can react. I don't think there's anything crazy in there, but episode 880, Good Job, which is obviously the Jillian one. It makes sense because it's the premiere and it's the one that they talked about the most in the description. 881, Playing Favorites. Probably the Wyatt one. 882, A Wise Surprise. Obviously.
I wonder which one that is.
Yeah. 883, Breaking News. Probably one of those biggest surprises that won't be revealed yet that they said at the end.
It's another reporter character in Odyssey.
Or it's Jillian ends up continuing to stay working for the news, and the breaking news is that there's weather. 880.
Breaking news, Jillian and Jason are getting married. Good for them.
884, Always Home. This is finally the conclusion to Always from album 45, where Aubrey graduates from college and comes back to Odyssey.
She comes home for a gap year, and they're like, Aubrey, we haven't seen you in like 50 years.
She comes home to see that the Timothy Center has been like turned into whatever Becky has done to it.
She comes home and there's just horses everywhere being ridden around by angels, a screaming Renee running from the horses, and a bunch of theater troupe people screaming around, jumping off of roofs. And she's like, yeah, this checks out. And then she goes and takes a long nap.
Remember how Tom's sister came to Odyssey after revealing that he was dead for a decade and then never showed up in another episode except for angels and horsehair?
Can you imagine if that's how, like, all the main characters found out Tom was dead? They're like, oh, we thought he just stopped liking us and didn't want to hang out anymore.
And then 885, Further From the Truth, Called Shot. This is going to be a Maury episode.
I hope so.
Further From the Truth, and it's a finale. It's going to be a Maury episode. I'm calling it now.
I don't think it's going to be the finale for Maury's.
No, I'm just saying it's the finale of this album.
I am not sure if there's going to be a Maury episode in this album solely because they keep on.
Oh wait,
like,
I also did.
Really advancing the
someone
plot
commented on a thing and spoiled the fact that there was Maury in this album.
Oh, so, okay, then it might have Maury.
Because they were like, I don't know if you've heard the Maury episode that's new yet, and I'm like, people,
please.
Like,
I haven't heard anything. I'm so
please
behind.
Stop. Listen, everyone who sends us messages and comments and sends non-stop, listen.
Don't be mean.
No, I'm just saying, listen, if we have not released a video where we talk about the episode, assume that we have not heard it yet, if it's a new episode. If our video has not been released on YouTube, you can assume that we have not heard it yet.
Assume Devin will not let me listen to it yet.
When was the last time I was able to stop you from listening to an episode? Never is the answer. So, those are the titles. Now, let's talk about the album art.
I guess this means since we're doing this, I can just turn off Skype and binge all the episodes now.
So, Out of the Blue is what it's called. So the theme for this episode is surprises, unexpected surprises. 6 episodes about surprising truths. There we go. We finally get an appearance for Jillian Marshall, double L Jillian, double L Marshall. She's doing...
Can I see?
Oh, sorry. I thought you had it open.
No.
Here you go. She is doing the meteorology. And
oh, I thought that was supposed to be Chris.
That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I know. I was confused every time I opened the OAC. I was I guess
Chris? I can see how that...
Like, that looks like Chris.
It does kind of look like Chris.
Yeah, so my brain was just like, oh, it's Chris.
And we could assume that she is not doing a great job because of Connie and this other lady's expressions.
No, that's just Connie's normal face. That's her happy face.
It's true. And also because the description does imply that Jillian is not great at meteorology, which I highly doubt. Personally.
So I'm thinking predictions already for the Jillian episode. She is either going to end up going back to one of the jobs that she did earlier in the episode, like working with Jason or something like that. And
because she realizes that, like, hey, just because I'm not good at something right away doesn't mean that I don't need to stick with it and improve.
Yeah. Or the person's like, hey, this one thing that you were doing at the job might not be your skill set, but this other thing at the job, like,
oh yeah, that's a good one. People like doing that.
I think like maybe she mishandles some of the antiquing stock or something like that, and something gets broken that's really rare or old or something. But like
Jason's like, you should be a demolitionist.
But it sounds like something he would say. But Jason realizes like, wow, she's really good at like reaching out into the community and finding.
They're gonna say like reaching into the display and like grabbing something because she has really long, skinny arms.
She has really long arms, and my arms are really short. Like
I hate using those old person grabby litter sticks, so I'll just hire Jillian instead.
Or like she's really good with working with like social interactions.
It's like
with, like, customers
Wooten in For Crying Out Loud.
Yeah, or either that, or it's gonna be like. Or it's going to be like a job that she just completely didn't try out for it. Like, someone's like, hey, I think you'd be really good at this job, and she does that job, and she likes it.
Yeah, I'm sad that
Those
she's
are my
not
two
sticking
guesses.
with working for Connie. But
I mean, she probably still will, because Connie has 2 jobs. Why can't Double L
true.
Jillian have double
Double
L
L jobs.
jobs? Yeah. I love Jillian so much. Jillian is, I'm going on record, Jillian is the best female character in all of Odyssey.
I know we're just saying it, but I still cannot get over...
I'm not just saying it. Straight up.
No, like, I'm saying...
I truly mean it.
No, I'm saying, I know we were just saying it recently, but I still can't get over my bamboozlement from the first episode where she showed up that she was not a one-off character.
I know!
Because when we get
I'm
a
so
character
happy.
in that kind of story context and the way she was introduced, and that I love as much as I love Jillian, they never show up for another episode. And now she's like a
Riley. I really liked Riley.
She's a
he was never seen from again.
She's a main character now, and I'm so happy.
I want Jillian at a live show. Imagine her chaotic energy coupled with the chaotic energy of a live show.
I don't want to
Everyone would die.
I don't want to taint Jillian with live show energy.
Too late.
Um,
Oh, could you imagine? What if they put all of their chaotic energy ever into Jillian, and then the live shows are good?
They just channel it through her, like The Witcher. I finished the second episode of The Witcher last night.
They take like all the chaotic energy in all their writing ever for all of Odyssey, and they siphon it through Jillian, and that's why she is the way she is. But then the live shows are just like good now.
She's the sponge.
She's the sponge. Because she's the best character, so she can do that. Sorry, you were saying you watched The Witcher. What did you think?
Well, I was just saying I finished the second episode, so I was talking about, like, she's the conduit for their chaos.
Yeah. Have you met... Oh, no, you probably haven't met Jaskier.
Jaskier, yes.
Oh, yeah. What did you think?
He's the best part about the show.
He is the best part about the show.
And I got to hear the song that I've seen. I haven't heard it yet.
You haven't heard it yet?
Sorry?
You haven't heard it yet?
I hadn't heard it. Obviously, I've seen the line everywhere in every context since it came out, but I finally got to hear the song and I was like, this is catchy.
I was listening to it while working on deliveries, and then I heard that high note because I didn't know, all I knew was the song was popular. I was thinking like, oh yeah, it's an actor singing. I didn't realize it was a musician that they hired who was also an actor to act in their show.
Because he plays the lute.
Because he plays the lute. I love him so much. And so, like, I heard him hit that high note, and I was just like, oh, I am watching the show when I go home.
Oh, this was before you watched it.
Yeah, I heard the song before I watched the show. It was what got me to watch the show.
I've seen the line everywhere, even when I was at the con, like, all the tipping.
I don't recommend The Witcher for everyone. It's not a show for everyone. Yeah. But at least listen to the music from The Witcher, because it slaps so hard. It is so good.
It was unexpected.
It is amazing. And the best part is, he is going to have a couple more songs, and all of them are just chef's kiss.
Even, like, at the con, like, everyone had, like, little tipping booths that were, like, things that were, like, toss a coin to your artist and stuff like that.
That sounds right.
A wallet of plenty.
Yeah. There's a certain point in the season where Jaskier stopped showing up. I won't say why. I stopped watching the show and I haven't finished it. Because I'm upset that he's gone. And I probably won't keep watching until season 2 comes out. Because I won't keep watching until he comes
Just like how you stopped watching Carmen Sandiego.
Yeah, because Graham stopped being in the show. I have problems.
Okay, those are our predictions. So, good job playing favorites. A wise surprise, breaking news, always home. Further from the truth. Jillian, Wyatt, Penny, Wooten, Baby, Jilson wedding?
Jilson wedding?
Aubrey returns to Odyssey.
Aubrey
and Maury
returns and takes a long nap that is well deserved.
Predictions locked in.
Yes.
Okay, that is all for now. Do you remember what we're talking about next time, Victoria?
I don't remember you ever telling me. I think you did.
I did, because I asked you to purchase something for it, because...
I did not do that.
It is Young Whit and the Thieves of Barrymore.
Do we get to start talking about the new album after that?
No.
We should anyway.
We get to talk about the world of Whittonia after that.
Oh, I don't want to.
And then we
the
get...
Odyssey episode?
Yep. The next AOC episode after that, the next Vowel episode after that, is the Sleepy Hollow.
When do we start talking about the new album? I want to hear that Jalason wedding.
It's a number of episodes.
No! Darn it.
Well, Victoria,
well, I can start listening to the album anyway.
You can. You see, Victoria, this review was supposed to come out in August of 2019.
You know what? I think we're making good time. August is still several months away. This is the most ahead we've ever been. And on that note, thank you for watching the Adventures in Odyssey Oddcast. See you 10 months from now in August. Bye.
Bye.